everyone, welcome back to another episode of Hysterrified, a horror movie review podcast. I'm Paola.
And I'm Danielle.
I'm Gorilla, and I'm gonna eat banana, aka Danielle, so watch out, buddy. Today, as you can see from the title, we are talking about Halloween. On today, Halloween, so, we thought it would be fitting. It's, the last day of spooky season, it's Halloween. And we're going to talk about the original 1978 Halloween movie. It is an American independent slasher directed and scored by John Carpenter, co-written with producer Deborah Hill, and starring Donald Pleasence and Jamie Lee Curtis in her film debut. So, before I read you a little bit about the plot, we do want to let you know
there's going to be spoilers, and if you don't like spoilers, then go watch the movie and come back. Otherwise, you might slip on a banana peel.
Otherwise, you could split.
Like a banana peel.
What? So here's a little bit about the plot of the movie Halloween. It tells the story of a mental patient named Michael Myers who was committed to a sanitarium for murdering his babysitting teenage sister on Halloween night when he was 6 years old. 15 years later, he escapes and returns to his hometown where he stalks a female babysitter and her friends while under pursuit by a psychiatrist. So before we start talking about what we liked and we didn't like about this movie, we thought we would talk about a few fun facts. Since this is a classic horror movie, there's a lot of really fun, information out there about how it was produced and how it came to be, basically. So we have some facts here for you that we want to share. And I got facts from a Screen Rant article, which I will make sure to link in the description of the video and audio version of the podcast.
I got my facts from IMDb. And also, one thing that I remembered from the documentary series on Netflix, the movies that made us.
Yeah, if you guys haven't seen that, they put out a few episodes for October that are all about horror movies. So, that show is really good on its own, like that little documentary series, because they do it for a bunch of other movies, but they did it for Halloween movies, and it's pretty cool. So the first fun fact in the article I found is titled William Shatner, the Face of Evil. One of the most distinctive visual elements of Halloween is the creepy, expressionless mask worn by murderer's Michael Myers. But the creation of one of the most frightening masks in cinema has a surprisingly benign origin. Actor William Shatner, or more specifically, his iconic Star Trek character, Captain James T. Kirk, says, working on a shoestring budget didn't allow for a prop department, so the production was forced to improvise with Carpenter's vision of an unnerving mask similar to the one used in the French film Eyes Without a Face. Producer Tommy Lee Wallace discovered a Captain Kirk mask, albeit one that bore little likeness to Shatner himself. Unnerved by its blank appearance, Jones made it even more formless, painting it chalk white and removing the eyebrows and sideburns. Thus was born one of the most indelible images in horror film history. Shatner got a kick out of his unusual contribution in Carpenter's film and claims that he went trick-or-treating in the mask the year after the film was released. So,
that's neat.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So it's kind of funny. It's something that you would never think to make a creepy mask. Although it sounds like it was a bad William Shatner mask. Because it didn't really look like him, but
yeah,
I thought that was pretty funny.
The story was based on an experience that John Carpenter had when he was touring a psychiatric hospital. He said that he saw a child staring at him with a look of evil, and it terrified him.
So I see. So that inspired Michael Myers as a child killer.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty. Some kids, man, they're scary. The next fact in the Screen Rant article is titled Making Sunny California Look Like a Midwest Autumn. While the film may take place in Illinois, the onset location of Haddonfield was in a much different region. Standing in for the sleepy Midwestern town was Southern California, or Pasadena to be more exact. Shooting in that environment proved to be a challenge for Carpenter and the crew. How do you make a perpetually sunny city appear to be the home to a chilly fall day in Illinois? especially given the fact that filming was to take place during the spring. The filmmaker, as always, proved a master at taking advantage of his limitations to execute his vision. Working with cinematographer Dean Cundy, Carpenter took extra care to obscure any stray palm trees in sight, not always successfully, but the most effective technique involved a bag of dead leaves which were blown about by fans under conspicuously green trees. This simple visual element helped sell the seasonal aspect of the film, but it proved cumbersome for the crew as they had to rebag all the leaves before moving on to the next shot. It's like, that's annoying.
Yeah, definitely.
Imagine how many shots they had. They were like quite a few shots outside too. So imagine how many times they had to do that. That's really annoying.
Yeah. They had to be thrifty though.
Yeah, they had to be thrifty. And you could see palm trees in the background. Like way off in the background, but you could see them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't catch it because I wasn't paying attention, but I mean, like, yeah, like it makes sense. Like,
Yeah.
if you're like really looking at it.
Yeah, there's in the article they linked like a video of a scene where you can see the palm trees. So they tried their best. I honestly think they did pretty darn good.
Yeah.
Because it didn't really look like California, you know? It looked like, you know, some Midwestern town, suburb, and stuff like that. So I thought that was really, really cool.
Jamie Lee Curtis made up the song Just the Two of Us that she sang at the beginning of the movie. And so I guess she just kind of like ad-libbed it or whatever as she was walking.
Yeah.
Which I thought was funny. There was a lot of like random like singing in the movie.
Yeah, I noticed that. I was like, okay. Maybe those actresses were trying to be like, hey, look, I can sing too, in case you want to hire me for a musical or something. The next fact I have is just about a few like mistakes or like goofs in the movie. Like I said, the palm trees were visible. The article says, one notable error occurs in the scene where Annie and Laurie investigate a shrub where Laurie saw Michael move behind. You can catch a huge puff of smoke courtesy of John Carpenter, who was lighting up a cigarette too close to the camera. Isn't that so funny?
I didn't notice it.
It's like the same. I feel like this always happens in movies too, like especially older movies. It's the same crew who like, you know, got a bunch of fall leaves and like picked them up every time, which is like such a meticulous detail. Also made the same mistake of like lighting a cigarette too close to the camera, you know? And it's like, I don't know, I feel like that was the nature of making movies back then. It was a lot more, or not every movie, but you know, like, especially in the horror genre when they had to be more like scrappy because it wasn't exactly like a mainstream genre yet. They like had to kind of put things together and make it work however they could. So I feel like it, you know, it happens. You can only focus on so much, you know, if you have a limited crew. So I thought that was funny. Apparently, there was also a stray crew member who could be seen hiding in the shadows as the phone rings incessantly in Lindsay Walker's house. I didn't notice it.
Really?
Yeah, but apparently you could see an actual crew member, which is really funny. I'm wondering if they've cut it out since.
Oh, maybe.
Somehow, but I don't know. It's possible that it might still be in there.
Yeah, that'd be pretty creepy though if you're watching and you didn't and the person didn't look like a crew member necessarily, just look like a random person in the house.
Yeah.
I'd be like, what?
What's that guy doing there?
What?
That's not Michael. It says a few other notable errors include a wrench taped to Michael Myers' hand to aid in smashing a car window, and a magical shift from day to night as Laurie and Annie drive a mere few blocks. And then it says, speaking of cars, every automobile in the picture has visible California license plates. And yeah, it says, still you've got to cut the filmmaker some slack. Halloween was shot in 20 days. So
yeah, that's crazy.
I didn't even, that's the thing too, like when you're so like focused on the story, like you don't notice little details like that. But like those mistakes still happen. So yeah.
That'd be a lot of work to try and cover up every license plate.
But they do it in movies now though, or they like switch them out or something, or they have like special cars that are specifically for production, you know?
Yeah.
That have the license plate of like wherever it's supposed to take place.
So this movie was selected in 2006 for preservation in the United States National Film Registry by the Library of Congress citing that it was either culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant.
Wow.
Which I thought was pretty impressive, like, for a horror movie. Like you said,
Definitely.
people don't give horror movies enough recognition, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I didn't know that. The next fact in the article is about the name of the movie. The article says, one has to wonder if Halloween would have been as big of a success if it was titled The Babysitter Murders. The odds aren't likely, but that was indeed the original title for Carpenter's project. In a shrewd moment of marketing-savvy film producer Irwin Yablans suggested the film's title should reflect the storyline's holiday setting. His promotional moxie was a stroke of genius, resulting in the title that Carpenter was astounded to discover had never been used by any film before. You would think, right? Halloween, it's so basic. Like, any other movie could have done it before. Maybe in a different country, but at least in the US it hadn't been done before. Due to Halloween's huge success, it inspired a slew of holiday-themed horror film knockoffs, including Friday the 13th, Silent Night, Deadly Night, April Fool's Day, New Year's Evil, and My Bloody Valentine. Be that as it may, Halloween wasn't actually the first slasher movie ever set on a major holiday. That honor goes to Bob Clark's 1974 film Black Christmas, which proved to be a notable influence on Carpenter's film. Have you seen that?
No, and I hadn't really heard of it until we saw that. I think they mentioned it briefly in the Movies That Made Us, and then also I read it in the articles that they were saying that could technically, that and Texas Chainsaw Massacre could technically be, like, the grandfathers of, like, slasher films.
Yeah.
But, like, they didn't really get popular until Halloween and Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street.
Like after, yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
So my next fact actually relates to the one that you just said, that Friday the 13th director Sean S. Cunningham said that he wanted to make a ripoff of Halloween after seeing how much it profited, and they, like, were pretty blatant about saying stuff about that they wanted to make the movie primarily to make money.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that it, even in the title, like, it didn't like click in my head that is, like, technically a...
Also, like, a date or holiday or something.
Yeah. But that's nuts.
Yeah. They just wanted to hop on the bandwagon.
Mm-hmm. I was just to say, in the Movies That Made Us episode for Halloween... Oh, no, not for Halloween. For Friday the 13th, they show scenes that look, like, identical of, like, a person, like, falling from the ceiling or whatever, and, like, I think someone getting stabbed and, like, sticking in the wall or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
There was, like, a lot of similar scenes. And
We see you.
Like...
I mean, not really sus. It's, like, confirmed.
Yeah.
At least they own up to it. They're
That's-
not trying
yeah.
to, like, hide it or something.
Mm-hmm.
So, my final fact from the article is titled Hitchcock's Influence. The films of Alfred Hitchcock were a formative influence on the works of John Carpenter, and Halloween is in many ways an homage to the master of suspense's Psycho. Donald Pleasance's character, Dr. Loomis, was named after Psycho's Sam Loomis, the love interest of Janet Leigh's protagonist, Marion Crane. Young Tommy Doyle bore the namesake of a supporting character in a different Hitchcock film, Lieutenant Thomas J. Doyle, in the voyeuristic murder classic Rear Window. Hitchcock wasn't Carpenter's only influence, of course. The ambitious opening tracking shot was an homage to the beginning of Orson Welles' 1958 film noir classic Touch of Evil, while the character of Sheriff Lee Brackett shared the same name as the famous screenwriter of films including Rio Bravo, The Big Sleep, The Long Goodbye, and The Empire Strikes Back. Psycho's most vital influence on Halloween would be in the casting of Jamie Lee Curtis as the final girl heroine, Laurie Strode. The actress's mother was none other than Janet Leigh herself. So, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
A lot of connections and a lot of, like, inspiration from Hitchcock. And I think it's really cool because, like, nowadays in modern horror movies, like, I wouldn't doubt that a lot of them are inspired by Halloween. So it's like, I think I see that a lot in the horror genre specifically. It's like more classic movies inspiring like newer movies. And then obviously in future generations, I feel like the movies that are a little bit more modern are going to become like inspiration for like movies of the future and stuff like that. I feel like it's very pronounced in the genre to have that sort of like like admiration for other horror filmmakers enough that you want to you want it to reflect in your own movie. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, that's really neat. It gives like a passing on the reins sort of thing.
Yeah.
Which is cool.
It also, I think, is really cool in that same vein because it allows, like, people to not forget, like, the origins of the genre. And obviously, like, speaking mostly about American horror movies, right? Because those are the ones that we tend to see more often. But, like, you know, there's... If these references are, like, cyclical or, like, if they are passed down from generation to generation, then people are always going to know the classics, you know, and they're not really going to forget them. And I think that's very true of the horror genre.
So my last fact that I had from IMDb is throughout the script, and I believe in the credits too, it said that the character Michael Myers is referred to as the Shape. And apparently the word shape was used in the Salem witch trials to describe spirits of the accused doing mischief or harming others. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, for them to have used it as, like, you know, spooky guy name. It's an interesting origin.
Yeah. I'm not sure if that's, like, if it was a coincidence or if he, like, intentionally was using the word, like, using the shape as, like, a placeholder to mean that, but... Yeah. Still pretty cool.
It's still a cool connection, yeah, even if it wasn't intentional. So now that we've talked about the fun facts, we're going to get into some, like, observations and just, like, things that happened in the movie that we noted, and then also into what we liked about this movie. So, Danielle, take it away.
Aye. Monkey. I mean, ape.
How dare you?
I thought it was pretty funny. At one point, I forgot what part of the movie this happens, but Michael, he, like, gets up, and as he's getting up, it sounds like pistons of like
hydraulics.
Like hydraulics of like a animatronic or something. So I wrote, "Damn, Michael is an animatronic."
Yeah, I heard that too. I was like, "What the heck was that?" It sounded like, you know, when you're in, like, kind of a low budget, like, haunted maze or something, and you can hear like the like the sounds of the animatronics moving and shit.
Yes,
it's pretty funny. First observations was the fact that I feel like this movie had like 3 different opening sequences.
Oh yeah,
like it was like, I don't know if it was just the way that it was broken up, because we watched it on the Roku channel and it did have ads, so like maybe it's just the way that they broke it up with the ads. But, like, there was the first bit, like, the really long sequence into the house when Michael kills his sister, right? And then I feel like there was 2 other scenes that I can't recall at this moment, but they were all establishing the story, basically. And they were all very, like, you know, kind of their own little story, obviously, that introduced the longer, the wider storyline. So I thought that was kind of an interesting way to do it.
I think I know which other 2 you're talking about. Probably the one after when they show the doctor in the car with the nurse.
Yes.
And then after that they show Lori walking around to
with the kid
to drop off the key and stuff. So it was
like 3 different little movies, I guess. I don't know how to describe it, but I was waiting for it to, like, usually in a movie or even in a horror movie, like, you get one establishing scene or some sort of, like, cold open before intro sequence that throws you into, like, what you're about to see, basically. But I feel like with this movie, it was very, like, episodic. Like, it was like, this happens, and then now this happens, and then now this happens. And then after the Lori scene, then it really starts to kind of be more, I guess, then it starts to flow into the rest of the story. So I thought that was interesting.
I know that they had a budget, I guess, so they couldn't probably get, like, a lot of, like, kid actors, and I know that they were I read somewhere that they were having trouble getting a lot of pumpkins because of the time of year.
Yeah.
But I wasn't buying that it was supposed to be Halloween, because I was like, where's all the trick-or-treating kids?
Yeah.
Where's all the like Halloween decorations and like jack-o'-lanterns? But I mean, obviously, like they had a low budget, so
Yeah.
They did pretty good with what they had. But
especially because they were filming in the spring, so like I feel like they really had to improvise, I guess.
yeah.
Aside from the fact that, like you said, the movie was pretty low budget and it was shot really quickly too, so yeah, I could see what you mean though, especially coming from like not too long ago we watched Trick or Treat, which also takes place in Halloween, obviously a more modern movie, right? But
they went all out.
Like there was no doubt that it was Halloween, in that movie, so it's interesting comparison to like Halloween, in which like the title is Halloween but they weren't able to make it as like Halloween-y, I guess. But yeah, that's a good point. Kind of going into what I liked, that going back to that like beginning sequence, the very first one where we get like the really long shot of it going into the house and when he kills his sister and all that. I really like that scene. I think it's like amazing. I didn't know that it was inspired by Orson Welles' movie, I think is what we read in the fact. But I haven't seen... Actually, no, I have seen that movie. I think I saw it in a film class, but now I want to rewatch it so that I can kind of see, how it was, influenced or inspired by that particular scene. But I think it's, especially as, like, any sort of, like, long scene like that even if it wasn't actually in one take, when they make it look like it was in one take is always so impressive to me, because you get that, like, point of view shot from the person that you're supposed to be like learning about. So in this case it would be Michael Myers, right? So I feel like any sort of scene like that's continuous is always really cool to me, but I feel like it worked really, really well as like the opening scene in the movie. I feel like it just worked really well to introduce the story, and especially too like when it turns into not first person anymore, and we see Michael like outside after he's killed his sister, and he takes off the mask and it's just like a little ass kid, and then the doctor goes like, Michael, and then like it starts to like pan out from his face and he's like, oh, he's like, what did I just do, basically. So I don't know, I thought it was just a really cool opening sequence, and the kind of thing that you see and like instantly, like this is why this movie is a classic, basically.
I like that a lot of like newer movies, I think, are taking advantage of the longer shots as opposed to really choppy like action shots, which have been kind of popular. But I know that there's some more modern horror movies that have like the longer shots, and I think that they are more interesting and build up more suspense.
Definitely. Yeah, because every cut is like, it's like a little like release of tension when you're put in a suspenseful environment. Every cut is like another opportunity to see something from a different angle, and to like analyze the situation. But when you have like one long continuous shot, you don't know what's going to happen next, and you're kind of experiencing it with the character, and I feel like that's what makes it so cool.
So, speaking of suspense, I really liked how they placed Michael everywhere all the time, and so it's like he was in the shadows and he was stalking Laurie and her friends, and I don't know, it really helps to build up to the end when you see him like starting to attack everyone.
Yeah.
Also, if I saw that guy following me everywhere, I feel like I'd be more freaked out than she was.
Yeah, right? That's actually one of the points that I made about, like, just, like, observation. I think at several points, I think it was actually when he broke the window, she, like, didn't even scream. She just, like, ran away, and I was like, nowadays, the main character lady would, like, scream her head off and be like, oh, my God! But, like, she just, like, she looked at it and then she just, like, ran away. And I was like, okay, cool. I thought that was an interesting choice.
Yeah. I thought that Jamie Lee Curtis's performance was really good in this movie, especially for being her first, like, film.
Yeah.
And I can see that I guess maybe I don't know what her personality is like, obviously, but I feel like she, just based on other characters she's played in other movies, I feel like she has a certain vibe of being kind of like dorky, but, like, charming and, like, I don't know how to describe it exactly, but I'm just thinking of, like, her character in Freaky Friday and in the movie, I don't remember the name, the one where she's the wife of Arnold Schwarzenegger and he's a spy, and she, like, finds out, and his name is, like, Harry or something. I don't know. But she has, like, a similar, like...
Demeanor,
yeah. And it's, like, I don't know. It's interesting to see, even at her, like, first film, that she still has that kind of, like, essence.
Yeah. I agree with you that she was really good in it. I was also surprised that, like, her voice then sounds the same way it does now. Like, I expected her to sound younger, so I don't know if, like, she has old lady voice or if now she has young person voice. But either way, it sounds the same as it did back then. I was like, oh, wow. Like, I was surprised by it. I was taken aback. But, yeah, she was really good. So, something else that I liked was the dialogue. I feel like it wasn't perfect, but I feel like it was really good, especially for being written in, like, such a short amount of time. I think my favorite part about it was the, like, teenage girl dialogue. I feel like I really liked the way that they kind of, communicated with each other. It felt, like, very organic. Even though one of the girls, I don't remember her name, but the one that had the, what was her name?
Babysitting the girl?
Yes.
Annie. Yeah.
Even if Annie looked, like, much older than Lori, I was still buying it, I think it was because of that really good back and forth that they had. And all the, like, little details that really played up the fact that these are, like, teenage girls and stuff like that. Like, when they were talking on the phone and they were talking about boys and, like, Lori was, like, playing with her hair and stuff. I was like, oh, those are really good details, Especially for a movie that was made in such a short amount of time,
Yeah.
So I really liked all of that situation.
I think that is a very good point, especially because that's usually one of my complaints about horror movies, is that they don't bother putting any effort into the dialogues.
Yeah.
And they sound really cheesy and, like, forced and fake. But this one, it was really good. And I actually read that because the script was co-written by Carpenter and Hill.
Yeah.
And Hill, she focused on all of the teenage
yeah, I read that too.
Dialogue, yeah.
So we have her to thank for it. She got it right.
I'm wondering if she wrote in the script, like, so-and-so sings a song, and that's why there were so many, like, songs singing. Because, I mean, it makes sense since it's coming from, like, her...
Yeah.
But I don't know. I also would say that I really enjoyed that Laurie's character was, like badass, even for back then.
Yeah.
She was, like, attacking him and, like, injuring him each time.
Yeah.
And, like, being, like, very strong and, like, not, like, freaking out as much, I guess. I don't know. I just thought that she was, like, a very different than I was expecting, or, like, ahead of her time. For, like, the character was, like, written ahead of its time, kind of, in that she's very, like, strong, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, because usually, the stereotype is that the girl that's getting attacked, like, doesn't know what to do, or is just screaming her head off and doesn't know how to escape. But, like, Lori was really, like, calculated, and she was really good at, like you said, injuring him, even if it was just a little bit, just, like, not doing nothing, basically. And it was interesting, too, like, playing off the fact that she was a babysitter, that she was very protective of the kids.
Yes.
And that was, like, her number one responsibility was, like, you guys run away and get me some help. But it was, like, yeah, I like that, too. I like that she was, like, doing something to kind of prevent him from attacking her, basically. So another little detail that I really liked was the fact that you could hear Michael, like, breathing under his mask. And, like, you could hear it a lot, too. Like, you could hear, like, the inhaling and exhaling and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like it was a really good detail because it reminded you that, like, he was just a person. Like, obviously the mask was really creepy, right? And when you see him, you see the mask. But at the same time, what you need to remember is that he's, you know, a person who is, like, deeply disturbed. And it's basically, a serial killer. So I feel like it takes away a little bit of that, like, monster element of it, which, obviously he's a monster, but people think of him as the mask, but there's, like, somebody under the mask who is, like, way more interesting and, like, super troubled, and it's not just some, like, mythical or, like, fake, kind of monster thing. It's, like, actual person. Like, I feel like it makes it more disturbing to think of him as a person, because then you, like, realize that, it could be somebody that could be like that, or you could be like that, you know what I mean? It's just, I feel like it was a really cool detail to, like, a little reminder to say, like, hey, look, he's breathing, like, he's a person,
Mm-hmm. He's a person, but he's always getting up after he gets injured. And, like he's invincible. I don't know. He's got some, like, skin made of, like, vibranium or something.
Yeah, I feel like that became even more pronounced in the later movies.
Yeah.
But here, like, you could potentially think, like, maybe he didn't get that injured or something so that he could keep getting up. But no, I agree with you. There's, like, he's a person, but he's also, like, super strong or something. Yeah, I don't know. There's some weirdness with his character after a while.
The music. The music is so good.
Yeah.
Super iconic. Like, I don't know. It does a really good job in adding to the movie.
Yeah, that was going to be my next point, too.
Oh, yeah.
I said, theme song is great, iconic, timeless, love it. And then even the other theme that plays when he starts chasing Laurie, too, it's a little bit different than, like, the original, like, iconic Halloween theme. But it still works, and it still sounds so good. And, the fact that John Carpenter wrote it, too, I think is so cool because... as a filmmaker and as a musician, I feel like he's in a really good position to, like, make his own music and have it really convey what he's trying to show in his movie. I feel like it's such a cool combination of things.
Very true. I think I read, too, that he wrote it in, like, 4 days or something, which is nuts.
Yeah. This whole movie, man, I feel like that's what happened all the time before. It was, like... super small budgets, not a huge crew, but they, like, put something together, and it was, like, so good that, we're still talking about it I don't know how many years later, We kind of already talked about this, but the fact that I feel like this movie's really good at building the suspense and then also delivering in a way that really stays with you, in a way that is more creepy than it is, like, just a jump scare, Because I feel like nowadays it's such a common technique to do, like, a quick jump scare where you get startled, but then the tension is pretty much resolved, like, right then and there, right? Which is, it's a good thing to watch. I feel like it's also a fun aspect of the horror genre, but I feel like this movie does something different where it's just, like, building and building and building suspense, and then when it actually delivers, it's like, it's like creepiness that stays with you in a different way.
My last point that I have is that the opening credits and the ending are both really cool. With the, like, zooming in on the jack-o'-lantern in the beginning, and then at the end, how they decided to just have the music playing and, like, showing different spots in, like, in the house and, like, in showing different parts of the sets that they used, and how when it gets to the last part, I think the last one that they show is Michael's old house, and you start hearing him breathing, so it makes you think, like, oh yeah, he went back to the house to go like recuperate or whatever.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really strong, like, opening and, like, ending for the movie.
Definitely. I thought that was a really good choice too. So the last thing I have is more of, like, overall, I feel like this isn't a perfect movie, obviously, but I feel like even the things that are flaws or could be considered flaws are part of what makes it, really charming and just, like, a really good movie, basically. And obviously, like we discussed, like this is a really important movie for the horror genre, so it was great, to finally see it. I feel like I've seen bits and pieces here and there over the years, but to like actually sit down and watch it and like recognize why it's like such a popular movie, why it's so iconic, and really see, like the beginnings of what, the horror genre has become nowadays with more modern movies. So, yeah.
Yeah, I hadn't really seen it much. I think when I was younger, I like came across the ending of it, and I remember that him like following her.
Yeah.
Was like oh, she needs to get in the house and stuff. But yeah, it was good to watch the whole thing through.
What did you not like about this movie?
The psychiatrist. I think that if you took him out of the film, it would almost make no difference.
Yeah.
It never connects really until the very end when he magically, not magically, but like he just happens to be walking right there and figures out that, Michael's somewhere in that area, and then the kids run out and he goes in there.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. It just seems like they were trying to like make it connect in the end. But
yeah, that's actually one of the things that I have too. It's, just that if they were going to include him as a character, that I wish that they would have done a little bit more with him to like just tie him into like Michael's character and maybe like explain a little bit more why Michael was so messed up. Like if you're going to have a psychiatrist there, like wouldn't you want to give a little more insight into, this killer? So so I agree with that. So that was one of the things, like I said, honestly don't have a lot that I didn't like, but one of the only other things that I didn't like was, just like the sound mixing in the beginning, I feel like was a little bit off, and it might have just been like how we were watching it or something. I don't know if it had to do with like our TV or like the platform that we were watching it on, or if it really was just like badly mixed when it was produced. But a lot of the scenes in the beginning, like the dialogue and like the talking audio is very low, so it's kind of hard to hear. But it does get better like after, throughout the movie. So that was the only other thing I was like, oh yeah, I that could have been better, from a production standpoint, I guess.
That was actually one of my points also. I thought even like later on in the movie that it was still kind of happening too, but that it was louder, the music was louder than the dialogue. And then I think I made a comment to you while we were watching it. I was like, what is this, like a YouTuber's video or something?
That's funny.
Yeah. I guess this is kind of ties into the psychiatrist's point that it would have been cool to know more about Michael, but I guess that they kind of wanted him to be like mysterious and unknown. Yeah, so he's more like, I don't know, more scary because you're scared of what you don't know. Right. But I don't know. It just seemed like I didn't understand like why he was going after people. But I guess the psychiatrist just said he's like pure evil. Yeah. So and I was like, I mean, okay. I feel like that's kind of a cop out, but yeah. I mean, I haven't seen... The only other Halloween movie that I've seen is the one that came out just a few years ago. The one in 2018. And obviously that has Laurie, like, as an adult and kind of, like, still pretty much traumatized over Michael. But I don't think I remember them mentioning too much about him in that one either. Yeah. So I'm curious to know if, like, in any of the other bajillion movies... They like go more into his psyche and why he kills people and whatnot. Yeah, I've seen the Rob Zombie one a few times, and if I remember correctly, it's been a long time since I've seen it, but I think that they show that he had like a crappy household that he came from. I think in that one he's like living in a trailer with like a dad and a sister, and that like I think the dad's an alcoholic or something. If I'm remembering correctly, but it seemed like it was like a... Like they were establishing a little bit of Yeah.
his life. And okay, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I've seen those, or if I have, then I've seen just like parts of it. I don't remember seeing the whole thing.
Yeah.
Danielle, what did you rate this movie?
I gave this movie an 8.3 out of 10 coat hangers to the eye.
Nice.
What did you rate this movie?
I rated this movie 8 out of 10 songs about Paul. So that's going to be it for today's episode. We hope that you guys liked it. We hope that you have a really good Halloween. Let us know what you're doing in the comments. We want to know. Personally, we're going to a haunted maze thing situation. So we're really excited about that. Again, as always, if you have any comments or questions or movie suggestions, you can email us at danielleandpaula@gmail.com.
And you can follow us on social media. We have Instagram, and our handle is hysterrifiedpodcast. And then we also have a Twitter, and the handle for that one is hysterrifiedpod. And then lastly, if you are using the Apple Podcast app to listen to us, it'd be awesome if you give us a review and a rating. We'd greatly appreciate it.
Thank you guys for watching or listening. We will see you on our next episode.
Happy Halloween!
Hey, where'd my dinner go?